Welcome to Keep Traveling Your African Story, the only podcast that shares the real voices and journeys shaping African tourism. I'm your host, Rael, and through my inbound tour operation, Keep Traveling, I've had the privilege of connecting travelers from all around the world with the magic of Africa. This podcast is my way of opening that world up to you, a place to learn about the people, properties, and opportunities that make travel across this continent so very special. Today, I'm pleased to introduce Christiaan van den Berg, who's the co-owner of Moditlo River Lodge in South Africa, who joins me to share his African story. Christiaan, welcome to the show.
Rael, thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, great to have you on board. Christiaan, for our international listeners, tell us exactly where Moditlo River Lodge is situated in South Africa and what would be the easiest way to get there.
Sure. So Moditlo River Lodge is set just west of the Kruger National Park, basically in the middle thereof. So a 20-minute drive from Hoedspruit, which is an international, but let's rather refer to as a local airport. So one can fly either directly from Cape Town or from Johannesburg. It's about a two-hour flight from Cape Town. And then within 20 minutes, you on the lodge, part of the Greater Kruger, and you're experiencing everything that you might have dreamed of from an African safari experience.
And once I've got into the lodge, tell me about the lodge setup as far as, rooms are concerned, the amenities, that type of thing.
So you picked up from the airport in a luxury shuttle vehicle. Within 20 minutes, you're at the lodge, the main lodge, which is comprised of 18 chalets, 18 double rooms, and from 2 private pools to full butler services, a fully stocked bar, a outside gym, a spa, the complete 5-star luxury experience, as well as then we've got 5 private villas ranging from 3 to 4 bedroom. That also includes a private butler, a private chef, a private Boma, private pool, as well as in a private game drive experience. Your entire experience, once you come onto the Moditlo Conservancy, is really surrounded by wildlife wherever you go from a luxury and private perspective.
And you talk about the Moditlo Conservancy. Where is that in relation to Kruger? Does that border Kruger?
Yeah, so it's part of the Greater Kruger. We don't necessarily share a fence with the actual Kruger National Park, although we do offer day excursions, full day excursions to go into the actual Kruger. But let's be honest, if you've been on one of our game drives, which there are 2 of included every day, you don't really want to go to the Kruger because you get so up close and personal with the animals. It's just not worth going to the Kruger and staying on a tar road.
Okay, so before I get to the game drives and that, I want to touch on something which is important for listeners, important for travelers. So let's just talk about the food and the beverage that people can look forward to enjoying at Moditlo River Lodge.
We've got an amazing culinary experience. So you've got your 3 meals included in the stay. So from luxury cold and hot breakfasts every morning. If you can dream it, we can make it, to a lighter buffet style lunch, which could be light or heavy depending on how hungry you are. And then we have incredible evening dining experiences. So from a Boma experience where there's your traditional braai as well as other traditional dishes, to then fine dining experiences that are either situated within the wider dining experience, or we can arrange private tables and dining experiences for couples that prefer that. But we've been rated top on TripAdvisor within the area because the food is just so exceptional. We have people driving in from quite far just to eat a meal at the lodge itself as well.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that future bookings, people can make you aware of their issues that they might have, allergies, etc., and you're going to take care of that, right?
Oh, absolutely. The team, the chef and the team is incredible in taking an allergy and basically setting the meal up in a way where you don't feel you're missing out on whatever other guests are eating at all. So you're fully immersed into the dining experience that we offer to everyone.
Yeah, quite a lot of lodges, not just in South Africa, but quite a lot of lodges like to offer that opportunity of dining in, bespoke areas, moving. So it's not really a dining area, but moving your eating experience down to the river or into a bush area, that type of thing. Do you offer that as well, Christiaan?
100%. So we've got riverbed bomas for private couples. We can move them onto the lookout deck, which is completely private from everyone. We can set your meal outside your room, which obviously private chalet on the outskirts of the lodge. So again, if you can dream it, we can do it, because we don't sell just accommodation. We sell an experience. People need to leave there and not remember necessarily the bed that they slept in, although they'll remember it because it's amazing. But they want to remember the emotions that they felt, how special they were treated by our amazing staff and team.
I'm glad that you bring up that word experience a couple of times, because my thought process is not so much about the fantastic rooms, which I'm sure you have, but it is about that experience and about that connectivity to the wild and the flora and the fauna. So let's go back to the game drives and talk about that for a little while. What can guests expect to experience as far as being on a game drive is concerned?
Between your two game drives, one in the early morning and one towards sunset, if you stay at the lodge for approximately 3 nights, which is generally our recommended amount of evenings, I want to say 100%, but it can never be 100%, right? It's not a zoo, but you're pretty bound to see the big five, which is incredible, right? That's usually the tick box that most tourists want. But I think we also pride ourselves on just the incredible knowledge that our trackers and our guides have in sharing some of the most incredible species of birds that we'll stop and look at. Even looking at your pangolins, right, which are super rare, but we see them almost on a daily basis just because we know their behaviors. We can get up close and personal with the movements and behaviors of the giraffe, right? As your flight of giraffe are walking, like we follow them and speak to just the way they interact with, I want to say, with one another as well as the guests. So usually it's incredible actually to see some of the feedback we get from guests where even though you might have a guest that unfortunately in their stay only saw 2 or 3 of the big 5, their review afterwards is they don't really care about the rest because they got so enriched with the stories of the rest of the animals and their surrounding of wildlife and habitat that they just feel like this is home for them and they can come back at any time and see the rest whenever they want.
You touched on the point of the big 5, but I want to also mention and bring up and maybe even put you on the spot. First of all, do you only do driving safaris or do you walk as well?
So we do walking safaris. Obviously, most international guests are a little frightened for that. But yes, that is something that we do. We do an array of really cool excursions, from obviously your walking safaris to even going to rehabilitation centers where you can work up close and personal with some endangered species, with some species or animals that have been thrown to the wayside or injured, to help see how those are rehabilitated. And then excursions that range from incredible hot air balloon experiences where you're flying across the entire conservancy and sphere thereof. And just for painting a picture, the lodge sits within, I want to say, a few tens of kilometers from the very northernmost part of the Drakensberg. And when you're doing this hot air balloon, you're seeing from your low-felt open plains with animals to these incredible mountains that then stretch over into the Blyde River Canyon, which is also one of the excursions that we do, right? For most people, they don't even know it's the world's biggest green canyon, as well as the world's 3rd biggest canyon, period. So there's all the rave around Grand Canyon, which is incredible. I've been there myself. It really is incredible. But the Blyde River Canyon doesn't have to stand back for anything, right? To go there and to see not a canyon that's carved into a desert, but actually green. There's a river. You can go into the river with a boat excursion as well. So it really offers such a wide range of phenomenal scenery that you can keep yourself busy there in a 2-week period, even if you want.
Oh, no. And I want to come back to the walking safaris because I want to put you on the spot a little bit. People always talk about the big 5, but tell me, do we come across the little 5 or the ugly 5 as well?
We do, and I want to say that's part of the excitement that the guides usually have, because yes, the majority of guests usually just want to see the big 5, but then if you start getting, I want to say, deep and dirty into the field, into the wild, then you start seeing the little 5, the ugly 5, the forgotten 5, whatever that might be, and you really, even, I'm nerding out a little bit now, but even zoning in on a dung beetle, rolling a ball of dung. It's the most incredible thing to see, to stop and just actually take time to see, because you're not generally going to see if you're driving on an open vehicle for your usual game drive. But even things like that, starting to teach the guests the local names of the animals, starting to show them the patterns and movements of the paws in the sand, just so that they actually see the art of tracking and guiding and finding these animals, because the last thing we want is for the Greater Kruger to be seen as a zoo where you just come in, you pay enough money. That's not how it works, and that's not how it should work. It should be an experience in finding these sacred animals that are allowing us into their habitat as opposed to the other way around.
You're 100% right. Listen, I was in the Kruger probably about 9 months ago doing some in-person interviews actually, and I was a little bit disappointed that there was a leopard kill on the side of the road. The leopard was joyfully eating his buck or whatever, but it looked a little bit like the N1 sort of, and that was depressing in the sense that it's sort of taking away that experience, if you like, I mean, really, every Tom, Dick, and Harry with his vehicle was trying to jockey for position, and I was really upset about that. But I suppose there's not much you can do about that sort of over commercialization in places like the Kruger.
Unfortunately not, right? And that's why we offer your day excursions. But our experience in really tracking and finding and having that patience, because I think, again, in society today, patience and working and waiting for something is a skill that's completely lost, right? And the bush really equalizes us in the sense of, come here, and yes, there might be an hour where you're going to see nothing, but then there's going to be the next half an hour to hour and a half where you're going to be so excited because you've gotten a sniff of a predator's paw, and you're going to go through the trees. You're going to have to duck because there's some thorny branch that's going to go over there, but you're excited because you don't really care if you need to duck down, because ultimately the prize waits when you're seeing, oh, there they're lying in the riverbed, and you 4x4 over boulders and trees to be able to see something that no other person that day will see because another vehicle can't get there. So that's really, I think, what makes it so special, and what really gets down to the sacredness of living and experiencing the bush with the wildlife that's there.
Listen, you're 100% correct. And I think also when I've been chatting with people that promote Kenya, I think the Maasai is also running through that same problem as the Kruger, where it's just becoming more and more commercialized. And yeah, it might be great for the lodges and that are there, and for first time African adventure goers. But I think once you've done that, you definitely want something more authentic and real, and something that you can touch with your hands, right?
Oh, 100%. We've got guests from all across the world that have come back 6, 7, 8 times because they've got such an appreciation for the experience that they have within Moditlo River Lodge. And not just with the wildlife, but with the staff as well, right? Part of what the staff do, especially in the Boma evenings, their traditional dances, so you learn about their culture as well. You build relationships with the staff and the people that come from that area, that grew up in the bush. And I think that's super special because most of the times where people travel, you go in the tourist attractions, but ultimately you really only come back enriched if you've experienced the culture. And I think that's part of what we offer as well. You're surrounded by people that live out the culture of the bush as well. And I think that's something people take home with them and want to come back to experience again.
So on that note, what is Moditlo doing as far as sort of conservation or upliftment programs in the area?
Yeah, sure. So we part of the 36,000 acre conservancy that we help look after and protect, which includes anti-poaching units and rehabilitation efforts. There's so many projects we're involved in, from looking at transport of certain animals where there's an influx of, for example, elephant in the Kruger, right? There are too many, right? They destroy the habitat for the rest of the animals. To see how is it and where is it that we can all work together between the different conservancies to protect these animals, to either relocate them, but then ultimately our first responsibility is to protect the animals that are within our borders. Besides the tons of money that goes into protecting them, we really also protect them by respecting their process. For example, I think just 2 weeks ago, we had 2 new cheetah cubs. And for the first 2 to 3 weeks, no game drives were allowed near them because we want these cubs to, one, be protected, two, to experience the wild as it should be and not cower behind a vehicle or get frightened because of a vehicle or even get too used to a vehicle from day dot. It's those small things that really, I want to say, protect the animals in the greater scheme of things, because if they're not used to the wild, then they get too tame, then unfortunately the circle of life doesn't really regenerate itself in the way that it should, if that makes sense.
No, 100%. And I also maintain that, education at grassroots level is what's helping conservation efforts across Africa, is really, educating not the people that are working in the industry, but their children, so that they understand that the benefits of having the tourism industry, having those animals alive, as opposed to not, I suppose.
100%. I remember even a few years back, we had quite a horrible drought there. And we set up a fund me page to be able to buy feed for the animals. And it was incredible to see the feedback we got from especially the United States, where people are just so bought into helping these creatures that they might see once or twice in their lifetime. But as we all saw, the wide-mouthed rhino, the white rhino, almost at a point of extinction. And now you're sitting with not an abundance, a flourishing species, but it came because of efforts like, okay, cool, how do we get them fed? How do we protect them? Obviously, then we're not even speaking about the anti-poaching unit where lives are lost in protection of these amazing beasts. And so it's an ongoing trial to see the adaptation of not just the habitat and the animals, but then also the human species, and which is usually the biggest threat for them.
Yeah, us people, we're the biggest problem at the end of the day. I just want to come back to that dung beetle that you spoke about and reiterate what an amazing little creature this is, because I've seen it myself so many times where they roll this ball that's probably just as big as them, probably weighs a little bit more than them, and they schlep it off for, what must seem like miles and miles for them, and then they get to a hole, and then the physics behind them dragging it down into their, I think it's a nest, I think you call it a nest, dragging it down into the nest so that the female can lay the eggs in it. It's just quite amazing, and it's something that really, like I say, I always like to bring up the little five because they just amazing animals within themselves.
Oh, 100%. And I think what's so cool with these little surprises nature gives. So each night, what we'll do with the turnover for the guests is we'll put a little card on their table or on their bed, a little pamphlet, which speaks about the stories of some of these little animals. So we'll speak about the strength of the beetle, the route that they need to take, because not just do they push something that's usually 2, 3, 4 times their weight and size, but they do it backwards, right? Literally, if you watch them, they do it backwards, and they trevene like up, down, through, in between, under, over, like it's incredible. But most people don't know it. And then you come back after your hearty meal at night and you see this little pamphlet and you read about the fruit bat, which in itself is just this incredible creature, which you're not really going to realize until you see it. Or you read about the bush babies that sleep above the Boma that you see come out, and their bushy tails, and it's super cute. But then, we can actually read about, are they a herbivore and an omnivore? What does it look like? You're seeing these creatures, but you don't really know how they function until you're presented with it. And I think that's really been a cool touch for our guests, is to really, in every nook and corner, they expose to the stories behind these creatures as well.
Listen, you're right, and I love promoting them as well. To be totally honest with you, I hate being on a game drive. I much prefer to walk. All I know is that I've got to outrun the slowest person on the walk, and then I'm okay, But jokes aside, I don't feel unsafe at all. I think if you respect the animals, they respect you. For our listeners, give us your thoughts on best times to visit Moditlo River Lodge as far as, your 12-month calendar.
At the moment, in all honesty, we see tourists and an influx of people come all year round. From December, where, yes, it is a little bit more warm, so your humidity is slightly higher. Obviously, the lodge is equipped with amazing icons, cocktails, you name it, like you're pretty sorted. But it's incredible scenery from a sunset perspective and so forth. And being able to get up early and game drive a little later. But then the winters, so June, on outside June, July, is incredible because you've got these warm days. And yes, then cold nights, but it's incredible to see the movement of the animals. In SA, in South Africa, the bushveld habitat, there's not a lot of hibernation per se, except your reptiles, which is sometimes not the worst thing because you're not going to see too many snakes. But in all honesty, like the bush offers a different scenery, but I want to say the same amount of animals all year round. Yes, you might within January or Feb see some rain, but even that is an experience in itself because you're seeing how the animals operate, you're seeing a bit more flow of rivers, which is just as beautiful. So I'd say come through, pick a spot which best works for you, and then you just come back every other time of the year as well.
Listen, I've got to put my 2 cents worth in there. I like the July, Augusty time. I think it is cooler, but it's also because a lot of the grass and the greenery has been eaten, so you get a little bit more of an opportunity to see animals that are going to be elusive otherwise because they're going to be hidden by the grasslands, right?
Very, very true, and I'm speaking about just finding the animals. So Moditlo means place of the elephant, right? And from the Tsonga dialect, it really speaks to the way of the elephant. And what we see in the greenery is you literally might drive past an elephant that's maybe 5 or 10 meters from you and you're not going to see it. And then in other times, there's enough space to see it. That being said, our guides and trackers have become so incredible at knowing, especially in the greener times, which is beautiful, to listen to the movements of these big elephants so that they can quickly, and that's I think the privilege of being on your own conserve, go off-road and be able to find them in these greeneries, which is, again, an experience in and of itself. But yes, I think especially growing up as a South African, you'd go to the bush every June or July, right, or August. And there's this beauty in shorts and t-shirts and in the pool during day, and at night you're sitting with a beanie and a scarf. And it's just such an incredible experience to experience both extremes in the same day.
Christiaan, 3 items that people coming from overseas need to bring with them. What would be your top 3 recommendations?
One, if I'm putting my own selfish hat on from an experience share perspective, bring a phone with a good camera, or at least a good camera, because I think it's about capturing some of those moments and sharing it with other people. I think something that's really important just for the rest of the world to know, and especially the people willing to come through to South Africa, it's really paradise. And yes, we don't always have the best rap in the rest of the world, but it truly is safe enough. If you're visiting Cape Town, you're flying up to Hoedspruit. I've never experienced something that where I felt threatened. You always need to be vigilant, but I reckon that should be the case wherever you go in the world. But to share these experiences with the world out there so that they know what an incredible place South Africa is and what it has to offer. And then enough funds to bring back some souvenirs. I honestly think, and I'm just going on my own experience, it's always special to take something with you back home. But then if you're getting practical, and I know that's more what you mean, Rael, bring comfortable clothes. I think there's people try and have this incredible safari outfit, which is great for Instagram, but ultimately you need to be comfortable because you're sitting in a game drive vehicle for 2.5 hours. And then bring a variety, because in the same day you might experience a 30°C pool day where bring your bathing suit and have a swim, and then later that night you're sitting with 7, 8, 9°C on the game drive. So bring a variety of clothes, and then the rest you can honestly get there, from binoculars to clothes to insect repellent. Like we offer all that, and I'd be surprised if there's an institution or a place that doesn't offer that. But for the most part, we just tell guests to bring their appetite and enjoy it. And
everyone's going to go back a few kgs heavier, right?
100%. Even when I go visit other institutions or places, you let your guard down a little bit, right? And that's beautiful, because in the bush especially, there's really nowhere to go. You can't go for a walk on your own. Yes, there's a gym, but let's be honest, not a lot of people use that when on vacation. But give yourself that freedom. I think that's part of coming with the right attitude, is give yourself that freedom to enjoy not just the animals, but enjoy yourself as well. Enjoy the culinary experience. Enjoy just switching off, because that's what the bush really does offer, an opportunity, almost a forced opportunity to switch off.
Yeah, I just want to touch on one sort of last point. I mean, it's almost like non-practical to say that I'm going to travel to South Africa and go and spend 2 weeks, because that's the general sort of duration that people coming from overseas are going to travel for. But I'm not going to go and spend 2 weeks at Moditlo. So no. In your experience, what would your recommendation be as far as where else should somebody make a cognizant decision to go and see in South Africa?
Yeah, great question. So, generally, if you're looking at people that come, for 10 to 14 days, the recommendation is stop and do Cape Town. Cape Town is probably, in my opinion, but I know it's biased, but there's enough survey to indicate probably the most beautiful city in the world. From beach to mountain to winelands to everything in between, to urban, to your local cuisine, international cuisine. It's really an incredible place where you see so many different types of cultures come together in a super, I want to say, inclusive way, because you've got so many different cultures there. You've got people from abroad living there because the cost of living is pretty low in comparison. And then there's so much to do, from Robben Island with our rich history to experiencing some of the world's best wine estates and wine farms, to doing Table Mountain, which is one of the new 7 wonders of the world. It's endless. Generally recommend people to do that. What people then usually do, if they do come back for a second time, or if they've got enough time, is to move up to the whale coast, which is Hermanus. We generally see whales, and it's really beautiful. It's an hour or 2 hours drive from Cape Town. And then if people are wanting to and willing to, but this people generally do on their second visit to South Africa, is to do the garden route, which is just as beautiful, right? I think one of the surveys recently indicated that the garden route is most beautiful road trip in the world. And I've done it quite a few times. It really is incredible. So from 𝐦𝐸𝐸 to Pietermaritzburg Bay, wilderness, etc. It's just some of the most beautiful coastal scenes and forest scenes in the world. Still a handful of a wild elephant that roam those forests, which is incredible. And then obviously to do the bush. As mentioned, it's within a 2-hour flight from Cape Town, and within 20 minutes you're there, immersed in a completely different ecosystem with different cultures, obviously different wildlife species. So within a 2-week period, I'd say if you're here for 2 weeks, do Cape Town for at least 4 to 5 days. Treat yourself with some stays, maybe even in Stellenbosch at the Winelands area or Paarl. Do a quick 2-day trip up to Hermanus, Kleinmond, Betty's Bay, etc. And then I'd say drive back and do a proper 3 to 5 day stint in the bush, because there's so much surrounding there as well.
And as part of your suggested itinerary, I know you've been very generous in offering a prize giveaway to a lucky listener of the podcast. Would you mind telling us what it is that you're going to give away then, Christiaan?
Yeah, sure. So our heart is really for people to experience the beauty that God's blessed us with here in South Africa. And so we're willing to offer a 2-night complimentary stay for 2 people at Moditlo River Lodge, which is a 5-star luxury safari lodge. And obviously there's always the option for people to upgrade to the villa if they want to bring their family and kids with as well. But our heart is really for people to experience that and share that with the rest of the world.
Well, thank you very much. That's really kind of you. And hopefully people get that in their head to combine that with that other itinerary that you've suggested. But Christiaan, listen, thank you so much for coming on the show. I've really enjoyed listening and learning about Moditlo. And I love what you're doing there and can't wait to come visit myself.
Awesome. Rael, thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
What an inspiring conversation. Thank you so much, Christiaan, for sharing your story and for everything you're doing to grow African tourism. Don't forget, every week we feature fantastic prize giveaways from some of Africa's most beautiful lodges, camps, and travel partners. You could win your own unforgettable getaway just by listening, subscribing, or visiting www.keeptraveling.africa/podcast, or read more about today's guests by scanning through the show notes of today's episode. Don't forget to follow Keep Traveling on social media for the latest episodes, stories, and travel inspiration. I'm Rael 𝐸𝐸, and this has been Keep Traveling, your African story. Remember, a few years from now, you won't remember how much it cost you, but you'll always remember the memories you made. Keep traveling.